Timberwolves flowing in their veins. Mackie and Judd on Score North and ScoreNorth.com.
Yeah, I don't think it's significant changes, and this season I feel like has been a success, but our goal is, like I said, was to make the playoffs. But the expectations changed now, and we want more now. But the great thing about it is, with this roster, is I don't think this roster has hit its ceiling. We didn't hit our ceiling to get to this point to achieve our goal. There's still so much room to grow. So no, I think there is the core foundation here for us to work with.
Interesting. When that was such in Gupta, Dex, when was that? Was that like for the postseason sort of recap? Little deal?
I believe that was a week ago. Last Tuesday, last Monday.
Yeah, and of course, like they're making some changes to the front office, and he's the leader of the front office. They might make some changes, but do you guys know? I know Declan and I talked about this on Slack, so I'll quiz Judd here. Do you know what today is, Judd?
As far as significance in Minnesota sports, or like give me a...
Well, it's significance. It's usually very significant for the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Oh, yes. Yeah, it's ping pong day.
Today is the NBA
lottery.
draft lottery.
And they're not in it.
I swear to God, like I woke up this morning and I was just scrolling through Twitter, just trying to shake off the cobwebs. And I saw I follow some different NBA writers in some loser cities, those loser teams that can't finish above 500, make the playoffs. Like, wow, this is the second time. Now, maybe I'm wrong on this. There might have been some years where they were in the draft lottery, or they were out of the draft lottery despite being bad or something. But like, this is the second time in almost 20 years that this hasn't been a day where we have our full attention and celebrate. Oh my God, they got the number one pick. How does it feel to not care about the NBA draft lottery?
It feels like this. It's a weight off the shoulders of Wolves fans because they figured something would go wrong. They'd fall back, they'd get screwed. Occasionally, yeah, they got the top pick. But for the most part, I would say that it's a day that Wolves fans, and probably as a whole, Minnesota sports fans, are saved from the angst that usually befalls them on this day.
Yeah, because you're literally... however many times over the last 18 years, right? Because 2004 was and they might have still been paying the Joe Smith tax. Or no, they had drafted Indy Eby at that point, so they were done with the Joe Smith tax. But like, pretty much every year, you're crossing your fingers and hoping that you can get super lucky and draft a player that can change your franchise, because you're not going to sign a player that's going to change your franchise, and it has happened a couple times.
Yes, it has.
Not
for a long time though. It took forever.
Yeah, Anthony Edwards.
Don't forget, it was the Shaq draft at which I think we first all said, "Oh my God, this is never going to work well for us." It was.
But this, I think, yeah. Well, that was it Shaq, Christian Laettner?
Laettner, yes.
And then Alonzo Mourning. Didn't Alonzo Mourning go in that draft?
And they lost out on Kyrie as well.
Yeah, well.
Did they?
Yeah. I was going to say.
No, but did they?
Yeah, they did, but I'm okay with that one. The Shaq one hurt because you would have at least had him for the first part of his first few years.
Well, you would have him for 4 years, and then he would have gone to Los Angeles.
But it's 4 years of Shaq. Yeah. I would have taken that.
So I just wanted to bring that up at the start of the show today. Mackie and Judd, daily Minnesota sports entertainment therapy. It's a weird, somewhat fulfilling day to not give a rip about the NBA draft lottery tonight. And I've been thinking about something else here with the conference finals on the horizon. You can find those on 1500 ESPN Radio, by the way, the Eastern and Western Conference Finals in the Twin Cities. If you're wondering whether the Wolves have arrived, or to what extent have they become relevant, right? And it's one thing all right, finally, we don't care about the draft lottery. But when you start to survey the landscape here, it's amazing how much work they still have to do. And I don't say that in like a demeaning way. I think this is great. Now they're on the path, like Gupta was saying, okay, we achieved our goal. This was a successful season, but now we want more. And you start to look around at what do other people think about the Timberwolves. And we didn't talk about this last week. Chris Finch only received, out of 100 voters, 4 third place votes for NBA Coach of the Year. So he finished like 8th or 9th in the NBA Coach of the Year voting.
I was surprised. He basically was ignored. And Gupta didn't get a ton, but he did get one first place vote. So like he got a first place vote, and Chris Finch, who I thought did a really damn good job, didn't get one first place vote.
Yeah. So you got, I think we all thought he's probably not going to win it, but man, the over-under was like 34.5, and this team won, what was it, 45, 46 games or something? And then, we had a good time talking about, and Pat Bev is on ESPN doing the car wash again this morning. I wonder how that went down. Hey, can we do it?
He's not going to leave Bristol. They're not going to let him leave without a contract.
He'd honestly be better on TNT, because I think ESPN, it feels like ESPN is a little nervous about,
he's what they need. But he's exactly what they need. Like, if they're smart, they'll be like, Pat Bev, retire right now.
Yeah. But at some point, they're going to need to replace, like Chuck's going to retire at some point. So I could see in 5 years another iteration of it could be Dwayne Wade, Draymond Green, and like Pat Beverley or something on TNT.
Can you imagine if Pat Bev replaced Kenny? And so Smith. So it's Shaq, Barkley for like a few years left, and Pat Bev.
Oh my gosh. I mean, Kenny's kind of the centering compass, right? He's the
sane one.
I'm going to be more of a straight man. But the point I was going to make is Pat Bev is now on day 2 of his ESPN car wash. He was on Get Up. He was on ESPN Radio. He was on First Take debating Stephen A. Smith. And I probably watched like 4 hours of it just in the background yesterday. I think he was asked precisely 0 questions about his current team, the Minnesota Timberwolves. And that's fine. Like, I don't, as far as a national audience, they don't care about the Timberwolves. So as far as they have come, which, listen, for this franchise to not care about the draft lottery is a long journey.
Right.
But then when you look out on the horizon and you see, like the rest of the league and voters really don't even pay attention to the job that Chris Finch did. He's 8th or 9th in voting, got 0 first, second place votes.
Yep.
And Pat Bev is on national TV for hours and hours, and they're asking him about everything except the Minnesota Timberwolves during his car wash appearance.
Yep.
I just think it's an interesting journey that the Timberwolves on to regain relevance.
So I'm going to drop a nugget of Wolves information that we got on the bonus scoop from Dukes today, which obviously will be posted at all the places that you find your Score North things. And I'm going to drop this on you because I want to know what you think, because it advances what you're saying potentially a lot. It sounds like Mark Lowry and Alex Rodriguez, when it comes to pobos, want to go big game hunting.
Yeah.
And Duke said this is not like Elton Brand. This is not like, hey, we'd like to get the number 2 from the Sixers. Doogie flat out said he has steam that the Wolves are going after pobo, 2 Western Conference current pobos and 1 in the East, and I think it's Masai Ujiri.
Well, Masai Ujiri, it was highly coveted, almost
Correct.
left Toronto, didn't he, a couple years ago?
And didn't we talk about, I want to say Doogie dropped his name back in the Gerson days before Gerson got the job. But the point is this, the Wolves seem to be onto a good thing. As Dukes has said week after week during his appearances, there is a harmony at Target Center, which we have not seen previously for a long time. And it sounds like Mark and A-Rod, if they get their way, would like Sachan to stay as the 2, which I don't think he would, but would also like to make a splash higher as far as the pobo goes. Wow. So how would that... What are your thoughts, and how would that change? Like, do you like that? Because we've seen so much dysfunction here.
Reckless speculation.
That I guess I'm a little bit hesitant to say it's a good idea to shake it up again.
Go get Pat Riley. Come on. Let's go.
God, can you imagine?
Can be a blast.
Go get Jerry West.
I'll get season tickets.
Go get Jerry West.
How
He'll
old
be
is
miserable.
Jerry West? No, Jerry West is going to be caught up in a lawsuit with HBO.
No, I know he will, but he could run your basketball team while he's doing it. Turn out to be good at that.
Jerry West is 83 years old. Right
Go get Jerry West, baby.
What's Pat Riley's got to be 75. Let's see here. Yeah. Oh, God, he's 77.
Yeah.
My wife just bought me, so we watched Winning Time, the HBO documentary, and
Great show.
I found out that Pat Riley wrote a New York Times best-selling book back like 30 years ago called The Art of Winning or whatever it is. And she bought that for me for an early birthday gift this month. I'm 20 pages into Pat Riley's book.
Nice.
The blast. I love the idea of big game hunting. I think sometimes it's really easy to, because Sachin Gupta, he will be a pobo at some point, it sounds like. And I spent 20 minutes around him, and that was enough for me he's a great guy, just from everything everyone says, extremely intelligent. but he's never done this before. He's never led. This is where we have to sort of separate the last 20 years of Timberwolves basketball, the lottery, from where they want to go. And Sachin talked about it in that clip off the top of the show. If where you want to go is the games that start tonight and tomorrow, which is Eastern Conference, Western Conference finals leading to the NBA finals, it's a roll of the dice to just put the keys in Sachin's hands. I mean, it is. He's never done this before. So I think it's smart of them. I don't know what their list looks like, but if Masai Ujiri is on their list and he helped craft that wonderful Toronto Raptors championship run, now, of course, if Kevin Durant doesn't blow his Achilles in the middle of the NBA finals, I'm guessing that the Warriors probably continue on with their dynasty, but like start with a list of 3 or 4 guys like that, get turned down, and then if you come back to Sachin Gupta, I'm okay with it. I'm not okay with just giving him the keys. I think it should be I love it. I think it should be a full-on search for the best potential options in the world that might be available. Now, money's going to talk here because you're going to have to pay a Timberwolves tax. Whatever Masai Ujiri or pick your other candidates are making at their current places, it's going to be a lot more to come to this franchise with almost no meaningful history going back 30 years, right? What do you guys think?
I think it's intriguing. I like what they're building here. I guess I have questions about it too. Like, first of all, because Gupta, to his credit possibly, made no moves, I have no idea. Like it's not like he took Gerson's team and said, okay, here's what we need. We got to shake this up and shake that up. He basically took Gerson's team and said, yeah, okay. If he talked trade, he certainly didn't culminate trades. Okay, that's sort of a strike because you just don't know now. But what I like was I like the fact that it feels like there's a good working relationship between the coach and potential pobo. Chris Finch clearly likes Sachin. Is that a reason to keep Gupta? Probably not, but it certainly has to be factored in. But here's what here's what I would love to know, because this sounds like it's being driven entirely by Laurie and A-Rod. Is like, what is the goal here? Like, what do you want to do as far as big game hunting? What do you see for this team? And I asked Dukes this too. I said, would they be willing to pay essentially what you called, Phil, a Timberwolves tax? Because I don't see Glenn saying, oh yeah, you know what, Masai Ujiri, oh yeah, I'd love to pay him and give him a piece of the team of a stake. He's not going to do that. So I guess the question comes back to those two to say, one, I'm guessing that you have to prove that you have the finances to buy this team, although Dukes brought that into question last week. But 2 is, do you have like the secondary bank account now to pay a potential pobo who is going to cost a ton? So I think it's a really interesting conversation.
Okay, yeah, you brought some good stuff up here. So let's start with the finances thing real quick here. I'm not buying that. First of all, forget about, like, I know we're looking at this in a vacuum, but does Alex Rodriguez plus Mark Lowry have enough in liquid to buy the Timberwolves? Can they sell off enough assets or whatever it is? I look at it a little bit differently and say Mark Lowry in particular has been resourceful enough to launch 2 companies that have sold for billions of dollars to Walmart and Amazon. Resourceful enough to put together groups of investors and bring people together and hire the right people. If they need to bring 2 or 3 other people on board, hey, we're excited about this. Got my first taste of NBA basketball sitting courtside taking my shoes off. If they need to find a 3rd person to bring in with money, they will. So I'm not questioning Doogie's reporting by any means. I'm just saying I don't think Alex Rodriguez and Mark Lowry are going to come up short. We're like, oh man, we have nothing left in our pockets. They'll find a way. To your second point about the Timberwolves tax and big game hunting, Glenn Taylor is such a small thinker. You know, Glenn Taylor's owned this team since, 1994, 1995, and 20 years into his ownership, he's still, when it comes to, we fired the 7th person, who's the 8th, and he just kind of shrugs his shoulders, I'll talk to David Stern, or I'll talk to Adam Silver, and I don't know, like he hired David Kahn a decade and a half into being a plugged-in NBA owner because he had no idea where to even start with networking. So he lives in his little wherever, and he lives in Naples for part of the year, but then he lives in Mankato, and he lives kind of a small town life for a billionaire. he's not a connector in the way that Mark Lowry and Alex Rodriguez are. So I think if Glenn Taylor is calling the shots to any extent until he gives up majority ownership, it's going to be hard for me to say that this would be a Glenn. I mean, Glenn Taylor would have to fully concede this entire search to Mark Lowry and Alex Rodriguez, is what I'm saying.
Correct. And I think the one piece of evidence that we have that there might be, and this goes well beyond that there might be that possibility, though, is it sounds like Lowry and A-Rod drove the Finch extension completely. And Finch, it turns out, according to Dukes, had like a year left. So that was not oh my God, we've got to extend him now. That was more of a, let's do this, it's smart. But since Glenn conceded that and allowed that to happen, I think it at least opens the door for them to begin making more decisions. And to go back to the financial question too, keep in mind, Doogie was told by a source, I'm curious about this. So like there's nothing reported out there that they don't have it. I would imagine that when you're going to buy a team, you've got to show at least some type of proof of cash, right? Like it can't be Phil, Judd, and Dex go down to Glenn and say, hey, we'd like to buy oh yeah, cool. Well, okay, sign these documents.
Yeah. And then there's
you got to show finances.
Well, there's a huge difference between, hey, the company that I own is valued at $2 billion. Well, that doesn't mean you have $2 billion to then just transfer into a Timberwolves purchase. You have to have some sort of liquidity to your
you're showing that
net worth.
And just to be clear, though, Dukes was only told by a person in the league he was curious about this.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't think that's a concern until it's a concern, like until it's actually brought up as a legit concern. I do think this. The sooner that Mark and A-Rod are allowed to start calling the shots, even if they screw up, the better, because the previous guy obviously is not good at calling the shots.
Yeah,
so like I'd rather roll the dice right now and say, okay, you guys, not sure about this, but I'll take my chances, as opposed to Glenn, who I guarantee you would hire Sachin Gupta tomorrow for $5. And the problem is, as Dukes has said again, a year and a half ago, Glenn Taylor didn't know who Sachin Gupta was.
Yep. What can the Timberwolves learn from the Final Four playoff teams? I got a few things. If you're in the Timberwolves front office, coaching staff, if you're a fan, just like have your little Judd Zulgad notepad and paper next to you, taking notes on how the Timberwolves can improve. We'll get to that in just a second. Plus, we got to get to later on in the show, Judd Zulgad and his battle against the Twins blogosphere, which is going to be hilarious to watch play out. But we have discovered here on the show the best and easiest way to get a sweat on tonight's games or tomorrow's games or maybe the football season. It's a little place we like to call Aspen. No, I'm just kidding. It's Underdog Fantasy and the Underdog Fantasy app. So I'm on the Pick'em tab right now, boys. I know you guys have dabbled in this here as well. Oh, yeah. So you can pick over-unders on your favorite or least favorite player stats, get a sweat on the games tonight, and win up to 20 times your money in a single night. Underdog keeps it very simple with their easy-to-use website and mobile apps. For season-long drafts, you don't have to worry about waiver pickups or trades. You draft a team. Underdog will set your lineup based on the highest-scoring players. The lowest-scoring players are the guys who are injured. Just sit on your bench. It's glorious. That's for the season-long football games. Promo code SCORE, S-K-O-R, and Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100 in bonus cash. So easy, Judd can do it.
That's right.
Let's just say this. The Wild might be done in the playoffs, but Judd's not.
Oh.
Underdog is where Judd and Declan will be getting their hockey sweat on. Thank you, Underdog.
And PGA Championships this weekend, boys.
Ooh.
Love me some major golf. There's
Let's
not
get it,
another
baby.
better event I like to get a sweat on than a good PGA Tour
Who's
event.
been
True.
playing practice rounds? You see who's been playing practice rounds? El Tigre.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
Phil has disappeared.
Well, I think Phil has withdrawn from the public spotlight, which is probably for the best. Also, a shout out to our friends at Federated Mutual Insurance Company. They've been around for over 100 years, providing top line and frontline protection, risk management tools, and resources for businesses. They've also been a longtime partner of the Timberwolves, so we've all been grinding through it together with this basketball team. You can find a full list of industries Federated protects at federatedinsurance.com, where it's our business to protect yours. All right, so some really interesting matchups, Eastern Western Conference Finals. what can the Timberwolves learn from these teams? What do these teams do? Now, some of the things are not replicable, right? Like Luka. Maybe at some point Anthony Edwards can be a Luka, but he drops 30 points in the first half of Game 7. Yeah.
So
tough to replicate. Let's start with the Warriors, okay? And you guys tell me what you think about these things. Are they attainable? Is it realistic? So you can't replicate their historic shooting. The Splash Brothers, Anthony Edwards is becoming a pretty good shooter, but he's not Steph Curry. But I think what you can replicate, ideally, is the Warriors' ability to just flush a bad performance like a closer in baseball. They got beat. I think they were down by 50 points at one point.
They were.
To the Grizz. Was that Game 5? It was Game 5, I think.
Game 4 or 5. They were dancing during timeouts. They were so bored and getting beat so bad.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. We're getting our asses kicked. Whatever.
Right.
We're still the Warriors. Probably come back and win the next game. And I think the Timberwolves, because they haven't built up the reference points by any means that the Warriors have built up, they blow that 26-point lead in the first half of Game 3, and then they build it back up, blow the 25-point lead, and that thought sticks with them the rest of the series. And for Memphis, I think Memphis was pretty confident against the Warriors too, but Memphis can kind of sense, if we can just kind of be within 10 or 15 late in the game, we're fine. Because these guys don't know what they're doing. They're going to freak out at the officials. They carried it over, and they played tentatively and differently, and they got away from taking good shots in the fourth quarter. So the Warriors, we're down by 50. Whatever. We'll just come back and do our thing in the next game. Flush it.
Yeah, that's probably not near the point yet of the Wolves can I mean, and I saw tweets. Can you imagine if Cat was dancing down by 50? It's Draymond Green, first of all, is his own guy. Second of all, the Warriors knew they were going to win that series.
Yeah, it's a little different when you've got multiple championship cred behind you.
Exactly. You can get away with a lot of thing when you got rings.
Yeah. So again, you can't copy the Warriors shooting. The Warriors were actually one of the best defensive teams in the NBA too. They have just a lot of versatility. They can switch more with more of their personnel.
Right.
The other three teams, I actually lumped the Celtics, Mavs, and Heat in a couple similar bins here, in that you're not going to be able to replicate having a Luka or what Jason Tatum has turned into. Again, you hope that Anthony Edwards can become one of these guys in his own way at some point.
Absolutely.
But what you can potentially replicate, and maybe a couple personnel tweaks here would help this offseason, defensive clamps. So these three teams, when you watch them in these playoffs, Celtics, Mavs, and Heat, it's just 48 minutes of swarming defensive energy and toughness. How about this stat? In a league where it's the first team to 120 points in almost every regular season game, right? Mm-hmm. The Celtics, Mavs, and Heat have combined in these playoffs to hold their opponents under 100 points 16 times. And I think 4 or 5 of those under 90 points in today's NBA.
This is the place where I think that there is a similarity that can be drawn between hockey and basketball playoffs, right? Because what you're talking about takes talent, but it also takes really hard work, and it's probably no fun. That's what I keep coming back to. I think the problem is playoff games are fun to watch. And I think people think, that looks like great fun, right? But go back to that stat. You think that's fun playing it's fun if it works, and it's fun when you win. But my point is, it's a lot of hard work by talented players. But that's where, to get back to the reference point thing, that's where I think you need the reference point of what it takes to win those games and do what you just said, which is not a high-flying, man, look at this team offensively. It's putting clamps on. That's a reference point.
And you need some of both. But when you think back to some of these games, how many different possessions, out of 100 possessions or whatever, 8 or 9, maybe 12, where there's a Timberwolves player flailing his arms at an official while a 5-on-4 happens the other way, wide open 3 in the corner, and you're thinking, it's middle of the second quarter, whatever. That 3 cut it to 6, or that 3 puts the Grizzlies up by 4. You'll overcome that.
Right.
But if that happens and a guy gets an open shot 9 times, makes 5 or 6 of them because you weren't locked in on defense, that's how you lose. That's how you lose a series. That's how you blow double-digit leads in the fourth quarter, right? That's how you blow a 26-point lead because you think the game's over.
Absolutely.
These teams are clamping. And then, again, I'll put Celtics, Mavs, and Heat You can put the Warriors in that clamping bin too. They're just a different. It's hard to even use them as a comparison. But another thing for the Celtics, Mavs, and Heat, they have gone all in on the dominant wing player. And they've built their entire strategy and organization around empowering the dominant wing player. So Jason Tatum, Luka, Jimmy Butler in Miami, it's not about a point guard, Chris Paul. And Devin Booker doesn't create his own offense. He's great, but he's not Luka great or Jason Tatum great.
Right.
Chris Paul, 2-0 blown leads both of the last couple of years. You can just kind of, he's getting a little older. You can kind of figure him out after a couple games. Bam Adebayo is a unicorn big man who can do a lot of things for Miami. Philly kind of took him out of the series, but you're not going to take the dominant wing player out of a series. You can't just take Jason Tatum or Luka or Jimmy Butler out of a series. And if Cat got taken out of the series 3 times. Some of it was his own doing.
Yep.
But I think the fully realized version of Anthony Edwards, you can't just take him out of a series. He's going to get what he wants. And that's what the focus should be on if you want to replicate some of these other blueprints.
I also think that the Wolves, it's imperative that if it's Sachan or somebody else, the other thing I really think they have to do is go get a credible big man to allow Cat to roam. Cat's got to roam more. Like you've got to create a situation for him where I don't think he feels beholden to be in a certain place and thus throw the defense more curveballs, right? But yes, Ant is the key here. Like I think Ant is the key on a lot of levels, starting with the fact that Ant is ultimately, and it's taken place, but he is the heartbeat of this team too. Like he's the guy who's going to get hot. He's the guy who's going to lead. He's the guy who's going to be your captain. When Cat's going well, it's marvelous. But there is no question that the emotional heartbeat of this team is Ant. He is. But I do want to see Cat be able to do more. And it can't be Naz Reid, okay? Naz is great. Seems like a great guy. But I think you need a credible big man who can allow Cat to do more. Yeah,
Naz, if your goal is to make the playoffs if your goal is to go from 25 wins to 40 wins, you need guys like Naz Reid. Absolutely. If your goal is to go from 40, 45 wins to 50, 55 wins, those are the tough decisions you might have to start to make. That maybe Naz goes from being your third guy off the bench to being your fifth or sixth guy off the bench who doesn't play on a lot of nights.
And he might not be here.
Or that too. But, he's a good player.
Yeah.
And he can shoot and stuff, but yeah, you should be examining all these different spots. But then you watch these games get locked down, and it just becomes kind of a street fight, right? And who's getting their shots off? It's the dominant wing player. You're not relying on Bam to get a shot off. It's hard for Cat to get shots off in some of these games.
And they've got that guy.
Yep.
So yeah.
So
that's the battle, really, to find him. And Ant's that guy, and Ant wants that too. That's the other thing. He wants that heat. He wants that smoke.
He wants the Suns, is what he wants. He wanted the Suns.
Yeah, I still not a big fan of that.
You should calm down a little bit on that stuff. Win a playoff series and then
you blew a combined 51-point lead in one game. Okay.
Yeah, pump the brakes a little bit on
Let's not be doing that.
All right, Mackie and Judd, we're going to collect ourselves for a moment here, and we got a pecking order later in the show, so hang tight.